Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let us start our chapter number 2, which is theories of development. Hope so the first chapter was clear to you, which was about developmental psychology. Now you should be knowing that what is developmental psychology. Developmental psychology is a branch of psychology which basically studies the natural process of change which occurs throughout the lifespan of any individual. Okay, so this chapter is also very closely relevant to the first chapter, because here we will be studying about different theories, different theorists who propose their ideas that how children they develop, they pass on through different stages and then appear as an adult individual. So the contents of this chapter include, first of all, Piaget's theory of cognitive development, Erikson's theory of cognitive development, Holberg's theory of moral development, Quran and the creation of man, explanation of in the Holy Hadith. Now, first one is the Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Now, first of all, you should be knowing that what is meant by cognitive development. Cognitive development is basically the development in the thought processes, the emergence, the gradual change in the emergence of thought processes, in the process of remembering, the process of problem solving, decision making, the process of becoming awareness or becoming aware of the world around you. All this means cognitive development. Fine. As I told you in the previous lecture that the cognition means to get awareness. Cognition means to become aware. So gradually, with the passage of time, the child becomes aware of the world and the surroundings around him. So this is basically the gradual change, the gradual start of cognitive development. Now, Jean Piaget was a Swiss psychologist, and he gave his theory in 1920s, around 1920s, and which became very popular regarding the cognitive development of child. So I'm not going into the detail of the autobiography of Piaget. So let us begin with the theory. He gave importance to both heredity and environment. He was not the proponent of any one aspect, that this is important for the development of cognition and this is not. He was of the opinion that both heredity and environment are important, nature and nurture. Nature is your heredity, nurture is your environment. Both are important with respect to your this cognitive development. Now he compared the stages of human development with the rungs of ladder and butterfly. Just like you see that there is a continuity in the rungs of ladder. Same is the case with the process of this development, which is a continuous process. And similarly, butterfly, when initially it is a larva, and from larva it becomes a pupa and then to caterpillar. So from one stage, this species it moves on to the another stage with a gradual change. This is again a gradual process. So same is the case with the human development, that from infant to childhood to adolescence. So these are stages which are included in the process of human development. Fine. So that is why he compared this with the rungs of ladder and butterfly. Now Piaget was of the belief that infants' thinking is clearly different from adults' thinking. Now why it is different? Because infants or adults are at different stages of development. Infancy is the very initial stage of development. where there is very, you could say, beginning of this cognitive development, a very initial phase of this cognitive development, but that start is very, very rapid. As I told you, that development process is occurring at a very rapid pace during the early days, or during infancy or early childhood of any child. So all the aspects of development, they occur rapidly. So same is the case with the thinking, which belongs to the cognitive development of any child. That this cognition, or the stage of cognition, where the child starts becoming aware of the surroundings, becomes very curious about the surroundings. So this is very, very active process. Child develops cognitively as it grows in age and experience. As a child grows in age, chronological age, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and experience, definitely with the growth there is maturity, and that maturity makes the child more experienced. Fine. So the child also develops in cognition. Now there are few important concepts in the theory of Jean Piaget. The very first is the schema. In the previous lecture, if you remember, I told you about schema. Schema is basically, in very simple words, I can say that schema is basically the storehouse of knowledge in your mind. So it refers to mental image of the object. So when the child is born, at that time there is no mental image, because child has not yet seen any object. But as soon as the child sees the objects, understands the objects, grasps them, has the experience with them, then mental image related to that particular object is formed in the mind. So these are the basic units of information. Basic unit of information, very initial, very rudimentary information that you get is your schema. So these are general concepts that are based on experience. So it is basically your concept formation. Initially, your concept formation is at the very basic level. It is very simple. But with the passage of time, it gets complicated. It gets complexed because of the experience. That experience includes your development, your maturation, your learning, your socialization. Fine? So, due to all these things, your concept formation becomes more complex. Initially, when the child understands that this is the round object, with the passage of time, he or she learns what are the qualities of round objects. What are the shapes that belong to this round figure and what that do not belong to this particular figure. What are the other objects other than ball and apple that are also round? Fine. So schemas are general concepts that are developed due to your experience. Initially, child conceives a simple schema and then gradually begins to build complex schema. As I have already told you, that you can't tell the 1-year-old baby that these are the qualities of round objects. You just make them familiar with the shape. Okay, it is very, very concrete initially, in the initial years. Now the second concept is operations. Now operation is basically any mental activity. When the child is able to repeat some schema in mind, it is called operation or mental process. Fine? So whatever is going on inside the mind, or if it is repeatedly going on, then it is an operation. There are two types of operation, and these two types of operations, they have very important place in Jean Piaget's theory. First is assimilation and second is accommodation. Now assimilation is, as you know, the meaning of assimilation, combining, fine. So when the previous information is combined with the new information, this is assimilation. And with respect to cognitive development, assimilation is that when the child incorporates new information into the already existing schema, it is called assimilation. When new information is stored into the already existing information, then it is called assimilation. Now here you should be knowing that there should be relevance in the nature of information. If you are studying psychology right now, fine, it is not your first experience with the psychology. Previous year, for the whole year you have studied. Now you are studying another aspect which is new for you, but the basic subject is not new for you. So you are going to add this information with already information that is in your mind, already stored information in the form of schema that is in your mind. So similarly, whatever you have learned about physics, fine, if you learn anything new about physics, you are going to add that new information into already existing schema of physics. Fine. So schemas are related. You are not going to do that physics information will be stored into the schema of psychology. No. There is a relevance. Fine. So this is the process of assimilation. So this process of assimilation makes our concepts more complex. Your day 1 psychology lecture was very simple. Your schema was very simple. But now, after the passage of 1 year, after studying it for 1 year, having experienced it with 1 year, it has become more complex. Is it clear? Now, new experience expedite this process. Expedite means to cause, to make something to happen. So, assimilation is because of new experiences. If you don't have new information, then what you are going to add into the already existing schema? Definitely, you should have new experience. The new experience is stored into the already existing schema. And then is the accommodation. Now, accommodation is basically you can say it is your problem solving procedure or strategy. Whenever you apply your already existing schema in any situation in order to solve the problem, which is basically your adaptation. But so many times it happens that what is already stored in your mind is not working in the new situation. So what you do, you modify your schema. You modify or change your strategy of solving that problem and then apply it. Then it is called accommodation. Fine. So when you bring a little change in what is already present in your mind, so that should be befitting in the situation, then it is called accommodation. Fine. So when the existing schema is modified, it is changed because of new information, it is called accommodation. Fine. So usually we accommodate when we have some problem. In order to solve that problem, we use accommodation, we use some problem solving strategy. Now this is the flow chart of 4 stages of the cognitive development given by Piaget. Fine. The very first stage is sensory motor stage, which is from birth to 2 years. Second is pre-operational stage, from 2 to 7 years old. Third is concrete operational stage, from 7 to 11 years. And the fourth is formal operation stage, which is, so these are the 4 stages of development. Fine. Now we will study each stage one by one, given by Jean Piaget. Now the stage 1 is known as sensory motor stage, and this stage starts from the birth and it remains there till 2 years of the child's life. Fine. Now, as the name is indicating, sensory motor, the main emphasis of child here is related with the sensation and motor activity. There is a lot of sensory acuity during this stage, motor activity during this stage. There is rapid change in the development in the sensations and motor activity of any child. Fine. So mental activity is based on only sensory motor activity. Fine. So usually the senses are very sharp at this stage. Your sense of hearing, sense of vision, and all other types of senses become very sharp. And side by side the motor activity, grasping of objects, throwing of objects, crawling, standing, sitting, running, then side by side running and throwing, all these is basically related with the motor activity, which starts from the simpler activity and moves toward the more complex one. Initially the child is performing reflex actions only, as I told you in the previous lectures. That reflex actions are those actions that are involuntary actions, fine, that are not voluntary, and that every child performs soon after the birth. The reflex action of grasping, the reflex action of sucking, fine, and later on the child is able to perform voluntary actions, those actions that we perform with our will, but if we want to perform, then we perform those which are under the conscious control of our central nervous system. Now the stage 1, basically the important thing related with stage 1 is the achievement of the concept of object permanence. Now before the end of the stage, the child thinks that whatever is out of sight is out of mind, means that whatever is out of sight is not in the visual field of the child, then it is not existing. But after the end of 2 years, the child gets this understanding that whatever is out of sight, not in the visual field, is also existing. That is why initially when the mother goes away, the child starts crying and keeps on crying until the mother holds the child. But later on, when the mother goes away, then the child becomes aware that she is going to come back and stops crying. Same is the case if you keep a toy or any other favorite thing of the child away from him, then the child will look for it after 2 years. But before that, the child will cry that the object is lost. Fine. So this is the concept which is mainly mastered during the stage 1, which is object permanence. So inshallah in the next lecture we will study the other stages of cognitive development theory given by Jean Piaget. Okay, thank you.